it's really kind of a bipartisan issue. So if people want to get involved, it's not as if you need to hope that your senator or representative is kind of on the correct side of this and think, well, if they slam the phone down on me, I guess they're not. This is something that both sides seem to agree upon.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. I'm not proud, but I have to admit, much of what I know about legislation and the bill making process, I learned from Schoolhouse Rock. I mean, I was a pretty good student and I did clearly all right in U.S. history and government classes. But when it comes down to actually how it all goes down, I often find myself singing, I'm just a bill sitting on top. So the problem is I don't really remember the whole song. So when two pieces of legislation, the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, and a reworking of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, made the news, I seriously knew I needed backup. So that's where my guests today come in. They are more than backup. They are well informed on all things governmental and are going to explain why these two bills are so important. David Monahan and Haley Hinkle are here representing the nonprofit organization Fairplay. Welcome to Healthy Screen Habits.
Thanks so much for having us.
Excellent. I'm so glad you could both be here. So let's spend a minute or two kind of giving some background and explaining what Fairplay is and the roles that you guys have in the organization.
Sure, and I'll take that if that's okay, Hillary, and I'm really glad to be here. So we work throughout the U.S. to help children thrive and have healthy development in what is an increasingly commercialized screen-obsessed culture. We educate families about how marketing is targeted to children, what the impacts of that are, and how we can all work together to push back against marketing that targets children. We're an independent voice, unlike some others in the sphere. We don't take any funding from big tech or from other corporations. And basically, it's all about the fact that when kids are young and impressionable, and desperately in need of healthy activities that are important to their development, we want the most important influences in their lives to be their parents, their educators, if they're a family of faith, a clergy person, the people who care about their development, not people who see them as a means to increasing profit and a target for marketing. We were founded back in 2000 by Dr. Susan Lin, who's a psychologist. We were called Campaign for a Commercial-Free Childhood at the time. And Dr. Lin was at Children's Hospital, and she saw the way media companies were just increasingly targeting kids, how Nickelodeon and Disney and other channels and movies were all these sophisticated devices for selling kids junk food and other movies and other television shows. And Dr. Lin was actually disturbed. There was something in New York called the Golden Marble Awards, where people on Madison Avenue got together, basically slapping themselves on the back about how terrific they were about marketing to kids and not caring about the impacts upon kids' well-being. Dr. Lin was just so incensed by it that she created kind of a counter message called the Have You Lost Your Marbles Award to raise awareness about the harms of child-targeted marketing. And things really kind of took off from there.
Well, I'm so glad that someone had the foresight to do all of those things, because we're talking way before the age of personal devices and, handheld technologies. We're talking, like you said, Nickelodeon and cable TV at that point.
Yeah, and there was a lot about what was going on in schools, like junk food fundraisers trying to take advantage of short supplies in schools and that kind of thing. But gradually over the years, increasingly, this organization had to start addressing the ways that kids were being targeted with technology. Things like the Hello Barbie doll, which was going to collect information from kids, supposedly be a friend to your child, but was really an eavesdropping device that would start marketing to kids based upon the information that was collected. And we worked with experts at that time who were just mortified, saying there's so many things wrong about teaching a kid that they should have as a friend in their bedroom a representative of a corporation who's really listening and trying to sell them stuff. And it's
so
also going
creepy.
to take them away from the creative play that they should be engaged in. I heard you say the word creepy, Hillary, and you can Google Hello Barbie and creepy, because frankly, thanks to our work, we kind of neutralized all the great marketing that they did, and people saw how creepy it was, and the toy was actually a flop. But we were ready when Instagram for Kids was proposed, for instance, as a new way of getting kids onto a safer platform. But the experts that we worked with were very clear about the fact, no, the idea was to be getting even younger kids at age 7 and 8 into that habit of being on social media, just wrong for them in so many ways. Starts to get them into that whole cycle of looking for affirmation, looking for somebody's artificial idea of popularity, so much about materialism and buying things to be happy. And as Haley and I will both talk about, so much of it was about data collection and just really targeted marketing. And so thankfully, we raised a lot of awareness about it. And we actually got regulators and state attorneys general interested. We were successful in having them put off that idea, and we're still hopeful that it won't happen. But those are the kind of incursions where they're just trying to get even younger and younger kids into the habit of social media and just being glued to their devices.
Right. Kind of gateways into the larger social media platform. So are those kind of, I'm just wondering, like, what you see as the kind of harms and risks for young people of today's internet? Is that, or are you talking like data collection? What do you see as being the largest things of concern, would you say?
Well, I think there are a number of them. So there's the data collection, there's the exposure to strangers, potentially predators. There's the exposure to materialism and commercialism, and sometimes ads for unhealthy products. So much of it is manipulative. It's about tricking kids into spending more time, into clicking on an ad, into making a purchase. So in so many ways, the experts tell us that they're targeting kids based upon their issues about body image and leading them into content that will promote unhealthy diets and unhealthy body image. And so much of it is also just taking them away from the healthy activities they need. So, we're all familiar with the idea that you might say, well, let me go on my phone and just check the weather or just see the score of the ball game. And an hour later, we're like, oh my goodness, I succumbed to all the bells and whistles of looking at a news feed, things that were selected by the algorithm, all those things. Well, in the case of a young person, if they do that for an hour or two, and if they do that a few times a week, then that's displaced activities that are so vital to their development. Just reading a book, playing outside, doing something constructive, like dealing with their boredom in their own way, in a creative way, rather than just being taken on this ride of what a corporation wants them to see. So those are, I think, among the really concerning harms that experts point to.
Right. So it's interesting. We're recording today. We are recording actually the day after California Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB, which stands for Assembly Bill, for those who need the Schoolhouse Rock refrigerator, AB 22703, which establishes the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act. And this is huge. And can you speak to why? Why is it so big?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. I think David just captured so much about what we are worried about when it comes to kids and teens and online platforms. And when we think about harms and we think about advertising, it's really kind of a cycle for these platforms, because the longer they can keep a user online, the more data they can vacuum up about that user in order to more effectively target them with ads. And then also tweak their algorithms and their platform design so that you want to spend more and more time there. And so young people really just get caught in this loop of, the more time they spend, the more sophisticated the platform can become at really holding your attention and using very sophisticated techniques to do so. And so, the California Age Appropriate Design Code, which is modeled after a design code in the UK, is really a step towards disrupting some of that cycle and shifting some responsibility back to the platforms to think about what are the potential risks and harms of their algorithms and design choices, and how do they inform families and parents of children and teenagers about some of those risks, and just have more public accountability for what they are building.
Okay, so it's shifting responsibility back towards big tech. And
yes,
which I think, so down here in grassroots land, it's interesting because both sides are equally important. It's so important for grassroots folks to educate and build awareness, et cetera, and give parents kind of tools on the ground. But without this legislative component, you're never. I mean, I hate using exactive language. I don't like using, the never, but it seems as though you're never going to get in front of it. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's true. Even the most concerned parents and families can take, as many steps as possible to protect their kids. But the fact is that they're up against these huge tech companies that have so much data and so much manpower to, design very sophisticated products. And so, we really think that there needs to be some responsibility on those companies to be installing, the more protective settings from the get-go, and making it easier for families to, have some peace of mind about, the settings and what's actually happening on a platform, because so much of it is a black box right now.
Right. And so much of it defaults to public settings. It defaults to making everybody's life an open book. And what's really tricky, I know as a parent, is that sometimes with updates, everything resets. So you think you've got it all in place, and then you go back, you do your monthly check, and everything's open again. And it's so very, very tricky stuff. I'm glad we're moving forward in that light. So we have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to get to the two major legislative bills for protecting kids online, KOSA and COPPA 2.0 defined.
At what age should I give my child a smartphone? How much screen time should I allow each day? What are the best filters to use on my family's devices? Sound familiar? These questions and more are answered at the Healthy Screen Habits website. We've curated the best articles, books, videos, and many other resources to help you figure out how you want to use technology in your life. Click on the awareness section to learn about the issues and dangers surrounding screen use. Then click on the tools page to download printables you can use with your family today, including the Healthy Screen Habits Family Technology Plan. Visit our website at www.healthyscreenhabits.org for the resources and tools you need to get started.
My guests today are both dog and cat owners. David Monahan plans and implements Fairplay's campaigns and builds partnerships with advocacy groups and policymakers. But when he goes home, David, his wife, and two kids share their Massachusetts home with a four-legged family member named Beatrice. So David, tell us, what kind of dog is Beatrice?
Beatrice is a queen, of course. She's a mix, and her DNA report says that she's part Great Pyrenees, part Siberian Husky, part German Shepherd, and a few other things. She came to Massachusetts by way of Tennessee, and indications are that the first 3 years of her life in the hot sun in Tennessee were not a walk in the park, but her 8 or so years since then have been absolutely wonderful, and she's a great part of our family. Thanks for asking.
Oh, sure. So she sounds absolutely adorable, but I do not envy the amount of vacuuming that happens at your house with those breeds. I can imagine the amount of dog hair.
She's shedding right now, and if this were a video podcast, I'd be sure to go get some of the evidence.
Oh, that's okay. I got plenty at my own house.
Yeah,
okay. So let's give equal time for cat lovers in the crowd and hear about Cammie, the Wonder Cat who lives in Washington, D.C. with Haley Hinkle, the policy counsel for Fairplay, where she focuses on advocating for laws and regulations that protect young people's autonomy and safety online. Haley and her partner Isaac share their home with Cammie. Haley, what is Cammie like?
She is a character. She's our little pandemic adoptee, and she's so much fun. She is part tortoiseshell, and I didn't really believe in tortitude until we adopted her. And it's so funny how very much she is in charge around here, and she's the most vocal cat. She talks all day long. Fortunately, right now she's napping, so I don't think she'll be making a guest appearance. Midday is prime napping hours, but she's just been so much fun. I was just remarking last night, I don't really remember what we did before we had her.
Yeah. Well, the attitude cracks me up. I understand that as well with the cats at my house. Nothing like pets and kids to keep us grounded and humble because
So
we
true.
think we've got it under control, and they tell us, oh no, actually we run the house. So let's get to the big topic of today, these two bills that are hitting the floor. First, I want to ask about COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and it's being referred to as COPPA 2.0. So how is this different than what already exists?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the original Children's Online Privacy Protection Act passed back in 1998, which is well before so many of the technologies that are so prominent in kids' lives even existed. And so while it has some data protections for young people, it only protects minors under the age of 13. It only protects them really on child-directed websites and platforms. And the Children and Teens Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA 2.0, updates that in many ways. It adds protections for young people ages 13 to 16. It expands what is covered by reaching kids where they're reasonably likely to be. We really want to meet kids where they are. We know, even when, for example, there's a sort of supposed to be an under 13s version of TikTok, that a lot of young people end up on the adult version anyway. They don't want to be on the quote unquote baby version of these platforms. So we're, with COPPA 2.0, really hoping to make this important change in protecting kids where they actually are. And it does, a lot of other things. It bans targeted ads to kids under 17. It puts into place some more controls and rules around, minimizing companies' use of data, who they're sharing that with, how long they're keeping it, really just trying to take what we've learned since the original version of COPPA passed 24 years ago and update it and try to make it work for kids today with the way platforms and technology work.
So overdue. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so overdue. I can't think of anything that 24 years ago was nearly applicable to today's life. So it's slightly horrifying to go, it's taken 24 years to swing this around, So the other bill that's getting a lot of press and focus from advocacy groups like ours is KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. And Haley, can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so KOSA we can think about as pretty similar to, in some ways, the California Age Appropriate Design Code. Maybe not necessarily in the exact words of the bills, but in the goals and what they're really trying to get at, which is, again, sort of shifting some of that responsibility for thinking about potential harms and and creating more transparency around what's actually going on these platforms. So KOSA establishes a duty of care that platforms would have to follow, and they'd have to, prevent and mitigate specific harms to young people, harms to their physical and mental health, products and services that increase risks of or promote behaviors related to really difficult things: self-harm, suicide, eating disorders, the promotion of physical violence and bullying, sexual exploitation, the promotion of narcotic drugs, and predatory and unfair or deceptive marketing practices and other financial harms. Things that we really don't want young people to be facing online.
Right.
These waves of content that we know, unfortunately, through both reporting and then investigations by journalists where they're pretending to be young people on these platforms, that all it takes is for an account that looks like a teenage girl to watch one video about dieting to then be led further and further with her video recommendations on TikTok towards some really dangerous ideas around dieting and calorie restriction and really pro eating disorder content as just one example. So the duty of care helps shift responsibility to the platforms to be actively thinking about their algorithm's role in that kind of thing. And then, it introduces, requirements for default safeguards for minors, like we were talking about those, defaulting to the strongest available settings. It provides more requirements around parental tools and parental notice. And again, like COPPA, we're expanding protections with this to the 13 to 16-year-olds, because again, right now we only have privacy laws that protect kids under 13. And we would really like to see 17-year-olds covered by both of these bills. We think that all teens, they're developing, they're learning, they're exploring. They deserve these protections, but we're glad to see the expansion to 16, and of course always pushing to get our 17-year-olds covered as well. But there's lots of different things the bill does. It creates, for the biggest platforms, requirements around public reporting and third-party auditing around some of these issues, and then it also tries to establish means by which the government can help researchers get access to data from some of these platforms to try to get at that sort of black box element where we don't know how these algorithms work or what information these platforms have. Fortunately, whistleblowers like Frances Haugen have helped us gain insight into what's actually happening. But we would love for researchers to have access in a responsible way that de-identifies the data and protects everyone's privacy, to learn more about what's going on here, so that we as the public can make decisions and ask for the changes that we need.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's, just all encompassing. And it sounds like it's primarily, and maybe I'm wrong in understanding this, but is it primarily focused on user generated content sites like social media, or is it also like video gaming platforms and those things as well?
Yeah, no, it covers a broad range of online platforms. I think when we think about harms, we often think of social media platforms, but we can very easily think of gaming as well, especially when it comes to that encouraging addiction-like behavior, design choices that are just meant to keep kids playing and throw ads at them all the time. That's where we get into the unfair and deceptive marketing practices and financial harm. So, it absolutely applies in that context as well. Kids spending more time gaming is, again, as David said, displacing some of those really valuable offline activities that are so important to development.
Sure. So when will these bills actually hit the floor? Is there like a calendared event, or when can we look for these?
Well, that's where we could really use the help of as many people as possible. These bills have both passed out of committee in the Senate. At KOSA passed with a unanimous vote, and COPPA 2.0 passed out as well. And so now we are doing everything we can to encourage the Senate to bring these bills to the floor for a full Senate vote. We have been encouraging everyone that we know, basically at Fairplay, to call their senators and ask for them to support these bills, to co-sponsor them. We are farther than we've really ever been in passing updated legislation for kids online. And we think that there's so much bipartisan energy around this. We really
Totally.
need to lose the moment.
I think coming out of the pandemic, everybody recognizes that technology was this, I'm going to borrow Emily Churkin's phrase, a lifeboat that got us through, but nobody's meant to live on a lifeboat. And so at this point, all of us are recognizing how important it is to kind of rein this in. And one of the things that I love about Fairplay's site on this is it provides this easy to click button on how to get in touch with your senator. So if anybody listening today is like, gosh, I want to encourage my senator to support this bill, please, I will link all of this in the show notes, including the Fairplay link. And it's falling off a log easy to do. I mean, as far as getting through. And when I did it, I actually got to speak with somebody in the office. I made a phone call and got to speak. And it's exciting to see democracy in action.
You're right, Hillary, and you and Haley both mentioned how it's kind of a bipartisan issue. So if people want to get involved, it's not as if you need to hope that your senator or representative is kind of on the correct side of this and think, well, if they slam the phone down on me, I guess they're not. This is something that both sides seem to agree upon. The little bit of a stalemate now seems to be more about just playing politics. So it would really be a shame to just not get these bills across the finish line in the next couple of months. If it doesn't happen, we will continue working, and partner advocates and families and experts will continue working and looking at the possibility of success in other states, the way California just passed a law. But we're so close now. It really is time for people to act and say, this is what kids need to create a safer internet.
I agree. Okay. And that honestly could have been our healthy screen habit for the day, but I'm not going to let you get off that easy. So when we come back, I'm going to hit our two experts up for their healthiest screen habits. U.S. listeners, listen up. There are two Senate bills that would provide the most robust new online protections for children in nearly 25 years, and they are now at a pivotal moment. We need your help to help get them passed. The Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, and the Children and Teens Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, have the potential to make the digital world much safer for young people by banning surveillance advertising to children, holding big tech accountable for exploiting kids through bad design, and more. Earlier this year, the bills were advanced by Senate Commerce Committee and now have the potential to be voted on by the full Senate before midterm elections in November. That's where you come in. We need you to call your senators, email your senators for support in these essential bills. Urge your senators to push these bills to the finish line and vote yes to support and protect American kids and teens from big tech's exploitive business model. My guests today are being exceptionally good sports. Not only have I pumped them for info on governmental issues, but when I told them they could submit a combined healthy screen habit as the tip or takeaway for us to use in our homes, they declined. They each submitted a habit. So today we get a twofer. So I'm not sure which of you would like to go first.
I'll start because then I think my tip segues right into David's. We talked about today how these platforms use very subtle design techniques to try to keep us all online. And, one of those is the, on social media For You or Discover page, where you're being introduced to pages, photos, videos that you didn't follow, and they can really get you there when you're scrolling through, like, what am I going to see next? So if you're trying to be more mindful about your time on these platforms where we are able to, connect with friends and loved ones that we don't get to see every day, I really recommend sticking to, on TikTok, you can switch over to your following feed. On Instagram, there's new options now, I think, for setting your feed to your close friends list. So you're not getting all those brand pages and other accounts that maybe you've followed, and can really just focus in on the folks who you really want to see and hear from, and then step away.
Managing your feeds so you can keep your time on tech intentional. I love it. Okay, David, your turn.
My tip is simply to try to go out on a high note. If you are going through the news feed or ball scores or whatever it is, when you see something that makes you feel really good and makes you feel good about the universe, that's a great time to just shut down and take that good energy with you for the rest of the evening, for your time with your family, and not keep looking until you see something that's liable to stick in your craw and make you look for other things that might stick even further in your craw. So end on a high note and shut her down.
I love it. I love the positive energy in the world that would bring about. And it's kind of a hack on the way that Netflix times their series, where they're always leaving you on a cliffhanger to want to watch that next one. I've also heard to end each Netflix episode 5 minutes before the cliffhanger drops. And so but it's just a different take on it. I love it. Okay. Thank you, both of you. As always, a complete transcript of this episode, as well as links to all of the resources mentioned, can be found in today's show notes. You can find them on healthyscreenhabits.org. Click on the podcast button and use the drop-down menu to find this episode. Haley Hinkle, David Monahan, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you even more for the important work you do every day at Fairplay.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, and thanks for the great work you're doing.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.